Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and to kick this week off, I am so excited about the entrepreneur that we're joined by in today's episode. She is honestly amazing. I love the work that she does. I love the energy that she brings. We were joking off air before we hit record just about being entrepreneurs, and I think that her energy is infectious, and more importantly for all of us, her topic is something that affects every single one of our businesses, because this is our most powerful asset, our most powerful coworker and teammate, and that is technology. So let me tell you about today's guest. Her name is Jen McFarland. Jen has more than 20 years working in an array of IT positions. In 2022, she started Marit Digital with the goal of providing support for the many small businesses that lack dedicated technical insights and support. She's on the path to a B certification for Marit Digital, as well as an occasional writer covering tech events and stories for the Triangle area up in North Carolina. Now, I love her business. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it beyond just her bio. Marit Digital, some of their services offered are both short-term project-based improvements, which we're going to talk about. One of the most clever offers that I love this way that Jen serves her clients, as well as longer-term strategic and holistic developments across web, email, and productivity tools, security, and best practices. Marit Digital also provides training on an array of topics, including AI. If you're tuning in here looking how to use AI to your advantage in your business, Jen's going to give us some insights there. WordPress, SEO and analytics, and security to help small business owners feel more empowered and confident in the digital positioning. So if you are there thinking, what am I doing with the tech stack of my business? Or you're just looking for that next advantage, I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Jen McFarland. All right, Jen, I am so very excited that you're with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was a great intro. Can I pay you to follow me around and do that all the time? Because that would help me out a lot.
Jen, I get that offer all the time. Honestly, I've never heard of hype man being a role, but sign me up for it because it's easy for me.
Eventually, when the tech gets good enough, I'll just walk around with like a little video of you doing my intro for me.
Yes, sounds good.
This is Brian. He can cover it for you.
I'm here for it, but I'm definitely biased when it comes to your business because I am a bit of a tech junkie myself. I always have been, so I'm excited for our conversation, but take us beyond the bio. Who's Jen? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, so I started my career in higher ed, which for those who have worked in higher ed, you might be aware that a lot of times higher ed is like a startup because you wind up being in a place where there's never quite enough resources. You're always trying something new. You're trying to serve a vast array of customers. So it's kind of a unique scenario where I think it trained me to be an entrepreneur better than I expected or understood. And so that was a useful way to jump into things. And eventually, after going through a couple of different sort of tangents, I decided in 2022 to make the leap into having my own business. Up front, like a big piece of that was that the company I was working for at the time was really high pressure. All of my clients were in other time zones. It was definitely going to be a struggle when most of the people I was working with were in California. Right. Prime time for them is when I need to pick up my daughter from school. So it's one of those scenarios where the work-life balance wasn't working. And starting my own business seemed to be one of the best ways to try to solve that problem. And I have to say, it's worked out better than I expected. It's not for everyone, I know, but I'm certainly out there preaching to a lot more women that starting your own business, it might be the solution that you didn't know you were looking for.
Yes, I love that. Right here at the top of the episode, a call to action about entrepreneurship being the path to so many of us building not just the business that we're looking for, but Jen, I love your emphasis on the life that you're looking for. That's powerful because I feel like we catch a lot of heat as entrepreneurs for not having that work-life balance. We're always turned on. We're always thinking about business, which is true to an extent, but I love hearing that for you, it's actually helped enhance that. And obviously the subject matter at hand today, technology can help us do the exact same thing. So talk Talk to us about that experience that you brought, because it actually sounds like you have already that mindset that I see in so many amazing entrepreneurs, which is, you know, that you were being prepared for this before you even realized it. Yeah. Obviously, you had a lot of experience in tech and IT. So talk to us about the professional background and how you spun that into, hey, let me just serve clients with these types of solutions.
Yeah, the role that I had for a long time at the university was one where I kind of ran almost my own shop within the university. I was the lead for a group that did a lot of basically an agency almost for websites within the university system. And so it kind of put me in a position where at some point I realized I was kind of running my own agency, but within like the constraints and or support system of the university. And so it had occurred to me earlier on that maybe I would do my own thing. But I will also say that when I started to look into this, I realized pretty early on that I did not, number one, I didn't really want to have an agency. And number two, I could do more than just websites. And like, again, where when you're in higher ed, you wind up doing a lot of different things. I was in central IT. And so I did a lot with communications. I did a lot with training. I did a lot with, the different types of tools that faculty and staff were using and students. And so I knew that I could offer more than just web, which was kind of my core business to begin with. The one thing that I was sure I didn't want to do was marketing. And I will say upfront, like, I see a lot of marketing agencies out there, and that is great. Marketing is super important. I'm terrible at it. I need to hire myself a marketing person. But I am terrible at marketing. What I'm here to do is help people with the technology, with, the Microsoft 365, the Google Workspace administration, the email authentication, the security, like all those other aspects. I have quite a few clients or partners who are marketing companies who will occasionally come across a more technical issue like adjusting DNS or doing some other more technical setup for the platform for their clients that they're just not comfortable with. And that's really where I wanted to slot in, was to be more of that technical partner, technical guide for smaller businesses who don't have that expertise.
Yeah, I love that, especially because hearing you talk about the way that it blends in with the marketing mix. I mean, Google Analytics, I know it's one of those things that comes easy to you that confuses most business owners that I get to talk to, but that is an essential part of a marketing mix to understand and measure the effects of marketing. But also there are some technical aspects to get the pixel installed on your website and to make sure that, I mean, Google just updated to GA4 this year, and that was a bit of a messy transition for non-tech folk. And I know that that's a huge gap that you plug. I want to ask you about the building blocks of your business, though, because what I'm always fascinated by in talking to awesome entrepreneurs like you, Jen, and the energy that you bring to it is that you didn't wait for anyone else's permission. You saw that gap, but then you actually took action on it, and you just said, I can serve them, so I'm going to start getting clients. And you talk about not being great at marketing, but Jen, the best marketing is being of service to others. So huge kudos to you that you just love doing that, which is why you're able to get clients. Talk to us about that, though, the fact that you didn't wait and you actually just jumped in and started serving people.
Yeah, again, like I've always done that. Like there's always been scenarios where people need help outside of in what I was doing for sort of my full-time, my regular job. So I would occasionally help out with a project here or there. And I probably shouldn't say this on here, but I'm really terrible at charging enough money. So I've always had that problem. That was probably like my biggest concern starting my business was, hey, let's actually remember to charge people money. But yes, helping people is kind of like core. There's no greater thrill I get than when somebody like gets it, or when they get excited about realizing something new. I mean, this happened with a client yesterday, and I was like giddy about it, giddy enough that I recognized that I was like, "Hey, nerd, like you're too excited about that." But it is a great thrill when you can do that. So the figuring out how to deliver these skills to people. When I started my business, I did have a few people where I'd already been helping them, and it was easy, not necessarily easy, but I could transition into that. I gave my previous job about 3 months notice because I knew I was going to do this. And so I had started to like incorporate, I'd started the process. I had a few clients. I was really stressing myself out by finishing up my job and then starting to spin up what I was doing for Marit Digital. So I was able to get a little bit of a runway into things. And then it was a matter of, a few different things. I'm not great at marketing, but I have some great friends and colleagues and former coworkers who have really spoken up for me, and I'm grateful for all their support. So I was able to network to get some clients, and from there, I've been, I will have to say, really successful at keeping clients, both for long-term ongoing retainers or partnerships, but then also, I mean, I'd have to look at the numbers. I should do this, but really. A huge percentage of my clients are return clients who I've supported and they've come back or recommended others.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to go a little bit deeper there because I'm sure that when people think about, I'm a visual person. So when you talk to me about keeping those clients and serving them on a retainer basis, I think about how cool it must be for them to essentially have a very trusted entire arm of a technology part of their business, which most small businesses don't have, Jen. I'm sure that you and I'm sure your clients also recognize that that's a luxury. Like that gives them such an unfair advantage in the marketplace as compared to them not having that. And I want to go back to, you come from the world of academia. Academia has departments. The enterprise world has departments. We know if you have a problem, you pick up and call the tech team. So many entrepreneurs feel like they're on an island. So talk to us about that role that you fulfill. For people wondering, what does that look like? People get to have Jen on their team. What's that actually look like and feel like for them?
Yeah. So the word that sticks out when you're talking about that, which I'm sure you've talked about, is fractional, right? The fractional position for a small business where they can't necessarily hire a whole tech organization, but if they can have someone who they know they can call if they have a question, if there's an opportunity to invest in something and they're not sure if it's a good idea, if the website goes down, if they find out that their email is going to spam, like having that person to call is, I think, really reassuring for any small business owner. And so that's really what I'm aiming to be. And again, not like I really only have a handful of retainer clients, but what I do have is a lot of people, again, who come back when the issues re-arise. And so or when something new comes up, or that they've contacted, their colleague has said, hey, I have this major problem. Do you know anybody who can help me? And they're like, oh yeah, I know this person, Marit Digital, down, go call them. So that's been, I think the way that I'm able to help people is by being there. Quite a few clients, unfortunately, have become clients when it's an emergency, which is not ideal. You'd much rather them become clients when they're available. But you also use the word luxury, and that is very much, I think, for some people, especially small businesses, having that kind of fractional or that extra level of support can very much be a luxury in some cases.
Yeah, I really love the way that you articulate that and the way that you view yourself as that extended part of their team. I want to ask you this because I've always wondered this about your industry. So I'll publicly out myself here that for sure my addiction online is AppSumo. I am always crawling AppSumo for the latest software tools and AI tools and all these different tools that work in the entrepreneurial space. SaaS companies have got it going on these days. They are launching cool SaaS companies every single week. So Jen, what percentage of your work or how do you split that focus between supporting the existing infrastructure within a business versus what I see as a tech junkie when I talk to other business owners and they're doing so much stuff by hand? I'm just like, holy cow, like Zapier could connect this to this and you could do this. And there's a world of possibilities. How do you gently and appropriately introduce people into those expanded tech opportunities, not just supporting their existing one?
Yeah, that's a good question. And to me, that's almost like a two-faceted question. One is how do you support your clients to move into taking advantage of those things? But then the other side of it is how do you stay on top of all of those? Because like you said, you browse, all over the web, finding out all these new tools because there's constantly new tools, especially now with AI coming out. It's like we've just hit the gas on new tools. So in terms of staying on top of that, obviously I'm staying on top of the big ones because those are, sort of the ones that I'm already using, that I see the most, that are coming in. One of the services that I offer is a technology audit. So when I have a new client, I'm going to go through and I have a pretty exhaustive survey where I'm basically saying, tell me about all the tech tools you're using. Like, let's figure out what you're paying for, what you're using, where they're integrated, and they may not even know what that means, like how much of that they haven't thought about that. So pretty early on with the technology audit, I'm able to see maybe the things that are or aren't being used and where they could be talking to each other better. And then, the next goal is figuring out what the right tool is to use. And I'm definitely an advocate for, wherever is appropriate, wherever you can make the tool do what you need it to, then have fewer tools, right? Like have fewer subscriptions, have fewer logins, like on a security, on an efficiency, there's better ways to do this if you can consolidate your tool stack, your tech stack. So that is one of the priorities that I certainly aim to put into place. And then where it's possible, yes, like let's connect it with Zapier, let's use Make, let's use other tools that are going to make it possible for these things to work together more efficiently for you.
Yeah, I love that. Jenna, I didn't pre-prepare you for this. Listeners know we have no pre-planned questions here on the show. But I do want to ask you this because I remember once upon a time I used to, just the nature of being the host of this show is that we love hearing from our audience all over the world, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, and we always get a lot of tech-related questions, which is why we're so excited to have you on the show. I can point them to this episode. But Jen, part of those questions is we've been asked a lot of what are the basic tools that every single business should have? And so I come up with some of the basics. Obviously, you need your website, you need Google Analytics. I would argue most businesses, service-based businesses, need some sort of email list like ActiveCampaign or MailChimp. They're a dime a dozen. We could substitute any of these tools in for the situation. But what does that basic tech stack look like for you so that listeners who are tuning in are saying, well, gosh, that's an instant hole or that's an instant hole. And I know that you have your tech audit, which we'll definitely talk about more at the end of today's episode, but lay a basic tech stack on us here.
Yeah, that's a great point. You hit the high points there. So email, I would really say productivity tool. There's very few people at this point that I know of who aren't essentially in the world of Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, which that kind of makes sense for what you're doing because both those solutions deliver the productivity tools that you're also going to need. So web, email, I will say there's obviously a lot to web. I spend a lot of time in WordPress, but I tend to work with clients who need more advanced content management, like true content management systems, but there are lots of other tools for the web. Productivity, like I said, and then the other ones that I would look at that maybe aren't getting as much attention, I would not tell people to jump right into buying a project management tool because that's not for everybody. There's some other solutions that you may want to consider, including the options that come with Google or Microsoft 365. But where I would emphasize is definitely a password manager. A shocking number of people do not have password managers. And to me, that is like step zero. That is core to your security. That should be core to your business. So a password manager is at the top of that list. And then one of the things that I will say is sort of an offshoot is I am using, right now I'm using Fireflies. I do have an article about this comparing Fireflies and Otter, and there are some other tools that do this as well. But I would definitely recommend, if it makes sense for your business, to have some kind of a tool. Otter and Fireflies are AI tools that will join meetings for you and record the audio and provide a transcript. And you can also program it to do some other things like, sort of pull action items out and things like that. So those tools are one of the best examples I've seen of the use of AI, because they're going to save you the effort of having to take notes. You're going to be able to be more engaged with the person that you're talking to. You're going to be able to get more details, remember more of it, and then you can go back through, and where you've forgotten things or you need to verify some information, you have a transcript of your meeting and you're able to confirm details for later.
Yeah, Jen, dropping some specifics and some examples and tools here. I know that listeners are going to be loving you right about now. There's two things I want to call out from what you just shared with us, because it's so weird that I'm going to not even say this entrepreneurially, just societally, we don't talk about password managers more. It's probably the biggest quality of life upgrade that I've done in the past 5 years.
Isn't it amazing? Once you have it set up and you're using it and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have to grab that password and the passwords are so much more secure. Like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the fact that it works on our phones and computers, no matter where we are, it's so easy. And then if we extrapolate it into the business realm, when I hire freelancers, I can just share a password with them so that they have access for however long they need it. It's so powerful. So huge kudos to you for sharing that with our listeners. And then I love the fact that you called out the AI meeting tool as an example. Like Otter is an example that you used. I recently, as of 2 months ago, I signed up with read.ai. Holy cow. I'm also more present in meetings now because I know that I can just listen and it's taking care of all that stuff for me. So I love your emphasis on that, which leads me right into, it's a big topic. Of course, we're meant to talk about it today, which is AI. I feel like AI at this point in its maturity cycle can either be the biggest game changer for people or one of the biggest distractions. Jen, what's your perspective on the way that AI is being used, that it should be being used, and how do you think that we should incorporate it into our businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm not even sure that it's a case of how we should incorporate it into our businesses as much as that we should. Because right now, at least with the clients that I'm talking to, it's just not something that they're doing. The people that wanted to incorporate AI did it when it was a big deal, like last year, and there was a lot of conversation around it, and maybe they've looked for a few ways to start to use it. But I have talked to kind of a shocking number of people. All the buzz about AI is not necessarily taking into account, I think, a lot of small business owners who don't necessarily, maybe they've tried it out a little and they see some use for it, but they don't necessarily want to invest the $20 or whatever a month to do it. Or if they did, they're not using it every day. They're not incorporating it into their business strategy. And truly everything that I see and read says that while you can use a free version, and obviously the free version, all the versions are getting better all the time, the paid versions are really where it's at for getting the biggest, impact, for having the most success. And so I certainly see where there's a lot of small businesses who either are sticking their head in the sand or aren't necessarily, they're kind of interested in it, but they're not putting the time into figuring out how to use it better. I think where AI adoption is really going to take off for small businesses is going to be where it's incorporated into their SaaS, into their existing tools. And to that point, I think we're starting to see that a little bit more. I know Google Workspace has it incorporated now, but I'm not really seeing it be as effective in that space as I was hoping. I haven't. All the use cases for AI that I want to use in Workspace are not available yet. So again, the technology is going to continue to grow. I think it's going to sort of slowly seep into our tools, but I don't see a lot of companies intentionally pulling it into their processes yet.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you say that because I'm obviously biased. You and we are always using tech in our businesses. I'll give a real life example. So here at the podcast, a lot of things that we used to have to do manually of coming up with the titles for the episodes and generating LinkedIn posts and blog posts and email posts for each and every episode, as well as all the quotables that our guests have said during the episode. Now, once we finish hitting record here today, Jen, I just take this MP3 file, upload it into a tool called Cast Magic, which is layered on top of ChatGPT. It outputs all of those things, 10 variations of each of them in all these regards. It gives us recommendations for YouTube chapters so that if someone wants to skip ahead to the part where we talked about AI, it's all baked in to the chapters for them. So it's really powerful. And it's a tool that, again, on AppSumo, because I just monitor these, I think we paid $89 for a lifetime license for it. So really
crazy, huh?
Cool things are launching all the time. And it's interesting hearing you say that businesses haven't jumped on here. And I would argue partially is that probably some of them don't know, they hear the hype about it, but they don't know where to plug it in, whether it's for social media content calendar. What are some of those use cases that you see?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one that I kind of start with for a lot of my clients, like I said, was the note taking. And that's because it's easy. Right. It's you do that subscription. It's not terribly expensive as long as your business is, one that you don't have any qualms about recording. Like, for example, if you're in in law or finance or something, there may be some concerns about that. But as long as your business doesn't have any of those issues, that's one that is very easy to integrate into your existing processes and kind of shows its value right away. And to me, that's kind of like the gateway drug to other AI. And again, like you said, with your tool, that is a software as a service. And there's more of those that I think people can use once they figure out that they're there. And it obviously depends on your industry. You're in an industry where there's some great tools for AI, like you talked about, that instantly goes through and recommends titles and generates some content for you. Those are outstanding. And probably where I've seen the most willingness to move into AI is from a few different clients who have essentially hired me to use AI to start to draft content for them. And I'm not a content creator, but I'm on that tech side of like, here's how we would use AI. Here's how we implement it for you in this context, right? Which is that we're going to create some content. We're not going to leave it there. We have to finesse it. There's a lot more to it. But that's another sort of relatively easy way to get into it. And then the next step is if they're a client and they're in an industry where there are some AI tools, AI SaaS tools that we can start to take advantage of and again, like incorporate into their tech stack, that's places where we want to try and take advantage of that if they're worthwhile. There's a lot of conversation right now about the value of AI. And that's certainly a piece that that I'm still looking at and considering. There's a lot of places where AI can sometimes be expensive. And because it does often require a transition in processes to like bring it into the flow, to bring it into your experiences, if people don't use it, there's a potential for a lot of loss there or an expense. But I think where we can try to, again, integrate it into the flow as naturally as possible, the value is certainly pretty impressive.
Yeah, really well said, especially because obviously cost is a consideration for all of us and all the things that we're doing as we grow our businesses. And Jen, you've already called out a lot of premium AI models start around $20 a month. That's kind of the introduction price to start using some really high quality AI models, ChatGPT included, of course. Google's doing a lot of stuff there. Perplexity is an amazing tool. There's a lot of cool options there, but I'm going to extrapolate this out because listeners know that towards the end of these conversations, I always love talking to our guests, not just as subject matter experts, but as fellow entrepreneurs. And this next question is going to kind of weave the two of all the things we've been talking about, but also something I think you are so brilliant at in your own business. And that is the way that you serve people. You've already talked about how you serve them on a short-term basis, as needed, or on projects, as well as a long-term basis, maybe retainer based, or just as an extension, a fractional part of their team. But I want to talk about your power hours, Jen, because I think that is so cool. When I came across your business, is that listeners, as someone who's looked into the way that Jen operates, she has these power hours that you can sign up for. So even if a lot of this stuff isn't cost accessible to you, you can, at a really low cost, have an expert like Jen look at your business, one-on-one attention with you for 60 minutes to talk about Google Analytics, newsletter sign-up forms, password manager basics, AI use cases and habits. And that's only the tip of the iceberg in what I imagine these power hours cover. So Jen, talk to us about these power hours. I think it's such a brilliant way to serve people.
Sure. Yeah, they evolved from originally I had a service that I called Get It Done, which was basically because I hear a lot from people, tech is intimidating. And if you're not comfortable with it, it's for a lot of potential clients, it's like this giant black cloud on the horizon where they're like, I know I have to go in and fix this DNS issue or recalibrate, some sort of configuration for my email. And I just don't want to. I just don't. Cause I'm going to have to pull it up. I'm going to look at stuff. It's not going to mean anything to me. I'm going to be clicking things. I'm going to break stuff. Right. So the Get It Done was meant to be a solution for helping people out. And that was something that the Get It Done was either in 3-hour or 7-hour chunks. So it was basically let's take half a day and work through your problems. But eventually over time, I had more people get in touch and, ask smaller, shorter term questions. I also often offer open office hours at some local co-working spaces. And so I would see there too where people would come up to me and ask, not necessarily like full sit down, let's go through the whole scenario thing, just more of like, so I'm doing this, like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not seeing this information? How do I get this out? And so that was where the power hours kind of came from, was like a shortening of the get it done solution to see if that kind of filled the niche a little bit more for more users.
Yeah, gosh, I honestly love that so much. The Get It Done sessions, I think, are so brilliant because I think at least once a month, everybody kind of feels that way. For me, recently, it was DNS records as I was switching around some domains, and it's just a pain in the butt. And Can I work on it? Yes. A lot of people, that is a totally foreign domain, and it's so much easier to just, Jen, get it done, please. Literally, the exact name of that. So I love that. I want to ask you this, sticking to the theme of talking entrepreneur to entrepreneur, because I know that a lot of listeners can learn so much from you in that domain as well, Jen. It just seems to me like you do things a little bit differently in your business. To even shout out, every new project that you work on, your company donates five trees. You plant 5 trees for urban forestry. I think these types of cool things really contribute in your office hours. Another great example where you're just thinking of ways to make your environment, not just talking about Earth as an environment, but your environment better. I think that the way that you operate, it's no surprise to me that you keep clients for a really long time and they love working with you. Not just because your energy is amazing, Jen, but you do these things a little bit differently. Talk to us about that evolution of figuring it out, because we don't all have these ideas on day one of being entrepreneurs. I want to get into the entrepreneurial mind of you. How the heck have you navigated these waters, Jen?
Yeah, that's a fun question too. It's thank you for that prompt. Yeah, I'm 2 years in, and it took me a while to sort of figure out the things that were important. Actually, that's not entirely true. Early on, I knew the things that were important, but I guess I didn't necessarily realize how much I wanted to focus on them. So over time, I started to do these little things. The going to do office hours started pretty early. I had had office hours previously when I was in higher ed, which was really useful, especially in a small consolidated community. I did assume when I started Marit Digital that I would work, more broadly, nationally, potentially internationally with other clients. And I have had clients in other states, but I haven't gone as far as like my other corporate job where I was working with people, like on the West Coast a lot more. So I am somewhat, I'm not local all the time, but there is an element of community, I think I would say, to sort of supporting this ecosystem of small businesses and groups. And that, along with sort of the mission and values that I established early on, as I went through the last couple of years, and I added extra bonuses on, like the planting trees, like there were certain things that were important to me, like supporting the community, supporting like other environmental aspects. And I realized at some point that those things were really important to me, and they kind of naturally aligned with the B Corp movement, which I'm not sure if your listeners are familiar with that, but B Corps are or businesses that are committed to supporting economic, social, environmental, and basically world improvements, sustainable improvements for the world across various different scenarios and solutions. And so those were places where I wanted to contribute more. And so I wound up going through the process of becoming a B Corp, and I'm currently in the queue for verification. So hopefully that will finish up before the end of the year. But I realized that was really naturally something that was important to me, and I wanted to sort of lean into it. And I've also been working on sort of not a pivot, but kind of an expansion of services to look at more broadly focusing on sustainable tech. So now when I am researching a technology, I'm not just looking at where it's going to fit into the tech stack. I kind of have this underlying effort all the time to be thinking about, well, what is the environmental impact of what this technology or service does, right? Like, is this business a good business? Do they support their employees? Are they environmentally conscious? Is their website, sustainable? And those are things that I'm starting to kind of build into, and I have been for a while, build into sort of my processes and my communications and my and my consultation, my advice for clients. So that's not something that's really on my website yet. It's continuing to evolve. Hopefully it will be something that I can speak about more, because it is also something that I realize that I'm really passionate about. So we'll see how that rolls out over the next couple months.
Yes, I love that. Jen, honestly, I so appreciate those insights. These are the real conversations that we're so grateful to have here on this show that listeners really appreciate, because this is the way you think. This is the vision that you have, not only for yourself and your business, but for the future, which I think I can very confidently say here in having had the chance to interact with you today, that you are a real life example of how business and technology can be positive forces of good in the world, far beyond our reach as far as the clients that we serve. There's so many opportunities for us to make the world a better place. So huge kudos to you, Jen. I have no idea how you're going to answer this last question. We always ask it of guests, and that is the one takeaway, because I know that listeners are going to be inspired. I can't even imagine the number of ways, but probably in a tech way, probably in an entrepreneurial way. But Jen, what's the one piece of advice that you want to leave them with after today's episode?
I think there's a lot of things that I would look to right now. But I think the one key takeaway is don't wait to fix your tech or to improve your tech until it's a problem. Don't wait until you get hacked. Don't wait until your email is going to spam. Try to be a little bit more proactive about that. Take a look at those things. The stuff that's keeping you up at night is probably keeping you up for a reason, even if it's just like an underlying concern. Get in touch. Even if it's just for an hour, we can go through things and, say, you know what, this looks okay. Or, you know what, this is something that you should look at long term, but it's not urgent right now. Or, hey, this is a problem and you're going to see issues. Like, those are the kinds of things that I think as a small business owner will make you feel a lot more confident and able to focus on the key parts of your business.
Yes, I love the way you summed all of that up with that answer. Jen, I also know that listeners are going to be super eager and excited to go deeper into the work that you do, your power hours, your get it done sessions, how they can work with you. So drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yeah, sure. So my website for my business is maritdigital.com or marit.digital. Both of those will work. I work with a former colleague and friend of mine, Sarah Egan Warren, and we do an AI cafe once a month. We're actually taking a hiatus for July because it's summertime and everybody's busy, but we typically meet once a month and talk about the latest and greatest news or weirdness in AI. So you can join us. We have a group on LinkedIn that you can hop into. And then there's, if you happen to be in the North Carolina area, I do open office hours in person at a couple of different co-working locations. You can find information about that on my website. And I have a Marit Plus service, which is kind of like I would say like a cheap fractional support option. So you can kind of try it out on a monthly basis and see if it works for you and makes me available to you for resources. So if you want to sort of start small, the Power Hours or Marit Plus are maybe a good way to try things out.
Yes, I love the way you laid all of that out for us. And listeners, you already know the drill. We are making it as easy as possible for you to find all of those links down below in the show notes, wherever it is that you're tuning into today's episode. You'll find a link to Jen's business website, which is maritdigital.com. That's Marit, M-A-R-I-T digital.com. You'll find that link down below. You can click right on through, as well as links to the group that Jen talked about on LinkedIn, as well as her newsletter, as well as her YouTube channel. So much good stuff. Definitely check out the links in the show notes. Otherwise, Jen, on behalf of myself and all of our listeners worldwide, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. It was a lovely chat.